Move. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we are now back in open session at 7:19 p.m. May I have a motion? Hold on, let me get down here to it. May I have a motion to certify to the best of each member's knowledge that only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification applies, and that only such public business matters as were identified to the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Ms. Bond?
No.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Ivers?
Yes.
Ms. Coran?
Yes.
Ms. Woolsey?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Oh, I would like to make a motion to approve that student B be exempt from compulsory attendance for religious reasons.
Should that be student A? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I thought it was student B.
A.
Student A.
Okay, student A.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Ivers?
No.
Ms. Coran?
Yes.
Ms. Woolsey?
No.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
I move that student B be expelled from Montgomery County Schools.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Bond?
No.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
No.
Mr. Ivers?
Yes.
Ms. Coran?
Yes.
Ms. Woolsey?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes. Okay. Now that those things are all in the books, we'll move on to honors, awards, and recognitions, and I will turn that over to Mrs. Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Tonight, we're going to be recognizing our Students of the Month and also our latest group of graduates from our Aspiring Administrators Academy. I'm going to ask Dr. Graham if she would come to the podium, and Mr. Lyons and I will go down and congratulate our award winners for the evening.
As Ms. Blackburn shared, this is the time when we do our honors, awards, and recognitions. And we will begin tonight by asking Joe McAlandra to come forward and introduce his Aspiring Administrator Academy participants.
Thank you, Dr. Graham. Chairman Lyons, Ms. Blackburn, members of the board. During the 2014-15 school year, the administration held its second Montgomery County Public Schools Aspiring Administrator Academy to provide firsthand knowledge to employees who are aspiring to serve as school administrators. We recognize the talents that exist in our school division and want to prepare the next generation of educational leaders from within Montgomery County Public School staff. This year, the participants completed 5 academic sessions. There's one additional one from last year was on safety and security. So they went through this program and did very well. They were taught by members of our staff and by the leadership team throughout the division. We had 9 employees participate in this second Aspiring Administrator Academy. Feedback from the participants was overwhelmingly positive, and we look forward to expanding and improving the Academy in future years. To recognize the efforts to improve their leadership skills, the administration is presenting the Academy participants in recognition for their completion of the Academy. The participants I'll call up one at a time. First, Blair Abrahamson. Anita Alderman. Jennifer Fenrich. Matthew McDaniel. Thomas Miller. Kirsten Mosby. Juliet Ryan. Chrissy Otrowski. And Kathleen Wright. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, Mrs. Weaver will come forward and introduce our Seniors of the Month program.
Good evening. A very special highlight of our board meeting is our recognition of a Senior of the Month from each of our 4 high schools. Photos and leadership profiles are displayed on the presentation board in the lobby. Our presentation format provides a snapshot of each senior and a quote from their administrator or teacher who nominated them for this honor. It's my pleasure to present Tim Bainham, Assistant Principal at Auburn High School, Amanda Widener, Assistant Principal at Blacksburg High School, Dr. Sears, Principal of Christiansburg High School, and Danny Knott, Principal of Eastern Montgomery High School.
Good evening, Ms. Blackburn, members of the board. It is with great pride that I introduce to you Auburn's High School Senior of the Month, Jared Downing. Jared is accompanied by his father, Joe Downing. Will you please come forward at this time to be recognized? Jared is a very impressive young man. One teacher described him as the quintessential gentleman and student. Jared shows an unparalleled determination in the pursuit of knowledge, and he always pushes himself to achieve new goals. In class, Jared enthusiastically and politely engages in class discussion and works quietly and diligently to attain outstanding grades. In addition to his academic success, Jared is an active member of the student body at Auburn. Not only is he involved in the many extracurricular activities, but he also excels in them. Jared is also a talented athlete. He is a 2-time All-State runner in cross-country and indoor track, an All-State performer in outdoor track, helping his team win Auburn's first boys track state championship. Despite Jared's athletic success, he remains humble and grateful for his God-given talents. With an incredibly warm and friendly personality, sharp wit, easy laugh, and genuine humility to complement his intellect and talents, Jared is the kind of student that has earned the respect of teachers and peers alike. He always takes a stand for what he believes to be right, but he's also respectful of other people's opinions. He always shows kindness and concern for others, and he readily stands up for the rights of others. Both in and out of school, Jared is a person that others can and do look up to, and he is an example of the type of student that we are proud to have represent Auburn High School. Thank you.
Good evening. School board members, Ms. Blackburn, members of the audience, it's a pleasure for me to be here tonight to present Blacksburg High School's Senior of the Month. At this time, I'd like to present Veronica Cortez as our Senior of the Month. She is accompanied tonight by her parents, Mario and Anastasia Cortez. At this time, I'd like to ask all of them to come join me at the podium. Veronica's high school resume is highlighted by outstanding academic achievement, numerous participation in activities and organizations, many awards and accolades, and service in a variety of community activities. Her future plans are to attend Stanford University or the University of California at Berkeley and major in environmental engineering. Veronica's chemistry teacher, Suzanne Dana, had the following words to describe her. Veronica has been incredibly successful in her coursework at Blacksburg High School, taking the most challenging courses available and getting high A's in all of them. It is obvious from her record that she is very bright, hardworking, and focused on her academics. What is not so obvious from a look at her record is the passion and dedication she brings to her studies, particularly science. Veronica goes the extra mile on everything. If she doesn't know the answer to a discussion prompt in a laboratory exercise, she reads the text or looks on the internet, then asks about a remaining question she might have on the topic. It does not matter whether it is expected that she know that particular concept or whether she would be penalized for not knowing it. Veronica wants to understand everything there is to understand. Just as important is Veronica's unpresuming demeanor. When she wants to ask a question that might be off topic or an extension of the basics, she will wait for an appropriate moment when she will not disturb the flow of the class. I found her to be similarly considerate of others when working in a lab group. I can put her with the strongest or weakest students in the class and know she will give her best effort to make the laboratory time to be productive for her and her partner. Blacksburg High School is proud of Veronica, and we wish her success in her future endeavors. Congratulations.
Members of the board, Ms. Blackburn, Dr. Graham, it is with great pride that I introduce to you Christiansburg High School's May Senior of the Month, Joseph DeAndre Long. He is accompanied this evening by the beautiful Camilla Long. Will you please come forward at this time to be recognized? Joseph was selected to be the final Senior of the Month for the class of 2015 based on the incredible independence, strength, and tenacity that he has shown during this school year. You see, while others in his cohort were worried about regular teenage stuff such as driver's license, prom dates, and college applications, Joseph was working through the perils of new fatherhood. Early in the school year, his priorities were instantly shifted to midnight feedings, diaper changes, and providing a home for his new family. We are extremely proud of how he responded and thrived under the circumstances that have caused many others to falter. Not only did he work 2 jobs throughout most of the year to take care of his baby, he did so while having the best attendance rate and earning the highest GPA of his high school career. Joseph will finish out his senior year on the AB Honor Roll. As educators, we gladly accept the challenge of turning boys and girls into productive, responsible adults. Sometimes our kids are thrust into adulthood earlier than expected. Getting to witness Joseph's incredible response to his life circumstances has been one of the most encouraging highlights of the 2014-15 school year. We are extremely proud of him and happy to introduce him as our Senior of the Month.
Ms. Blackburn, Mr. Lyons, members of the board, it's with great pride tonight that I introduce to you Eastern Montgomery High School's May Senior of the Month, Josh Leon Ferris. He's accompanied tonight by his mother, Beverly Hilton. Would you please come forward? EMHS gifted resource teacher Vicki Kitts had this to say about our Senior of the Month. Josh Ferris represents excellence in academics. His quest for knowledge pave a path of curiosity, truth, and justice as Josh seeks the highest levels of learning possible. Josh's enthusiasm and perseverance manifest in the energy with which he approaches each task. Josh fills a vacuum, to be sure, as he seeks knowledge in all academic areas and proceeds to complete every assignment in the best possible way. Josh is not content with a surface exploration in academia. His focus on depth and complexity as a scholar makes him a leader at Eastern Montgomery High School and at Southwest Virginia's Governor's School. Josh has a need for learning that is rarely satisfied. His willingness to go that extra mile in his work has led him to deeper understandings than most of his peers. Many students are distracted by their weekly studies, social schedules, and day-to-day living. Josh has faced personal adversity and limited experience in our rural community. He understood early in life that his limits could be defeated through education. Josh has moved forward in his achievement, refusing to let circumstances define his path. He seeks assistance, finds ways to connect with other scholars, and continues to focus on his learning goals. His tenacity, perseverance, and grace empower Josh to move forward. Recently, Josh was awarded a Crest Bridge Scholarship to UVA, allowing him to continue his studies as a top scholar. Congratulations, Josh. We know you're going to do well.
At this time, we'll take a 5-minute break to allow all the board members time to congratulate the recipients tonight and to play with the baby. 5-minute break.
Board sets aside up to 30 minutes for members of the community, students, and faculty, staff to address this board on matters concerning education. When I call your name, I will ask you to come forward, state your name and your address, and then your 3 minutes will begin. Your timers will be on screens throughout the room and on the screen in front of you. We do have 17 people signed up to speak this evening. So Ms. Drake, when we get to that point of 30-minute limit, please let me know so we can decide if we want to extend public address. I do want to make a couple of things clear concerning public address. First and foremost, the board will not respond directly to anyone who comes up and asks a question. This is your time to speak, and we want to hear everything that you have to say. With that in mind, let me also say that if you would, members of the audience, please refrain from applause because that cuts into their 3 minutes, and we want to be able to hear everything that they have to say. Also, along with the notion that we do not address things directly, a board member can choose to speak on the issues that you may bring to the table during new or old business at the end of the meeting. The one thing that we will not address during those times are matters of personnel. Personnel issues are things that we do behind closed doors, and we will not address any of those issues during new or old business. With that said, we have 17 people who are signed up to speak. I will give 2 names, and the first one is April Amadeo, and after April will be Amy Hogan.
Good evening, my esteemed members of the school board and Ms. Blackburn. I want to offer apologies before I even start. I'm going to be leaving immediately after this because I'm going to a viewing for a funeral a friend who passed away. I'm a little bit emotional tonight. My name is April Amadeo. I'm District A, 403 Pleasant View Circle, Blacksburg, Virginia. Not for self, but for country. This is America's Navy's motto. I wanted to share an image with you tonight, and I hope that you will reflect and take a moment to pause. I call this image honor, courage, commitment. Heroes walk among us. My son has embraced this code of honor at the U.S. Naval Academy, and it's been especially evident over the past week as he lost one of his fellow classmates in the Amtrak accident. When you were elected to serve the citizens of this county with honor and with courage and with commitment. Virginia Tech's motto, that I may serve, rings just as true. You are here to serve the citizens of this county, not an agenda. Tonight I stand before you in honor of my husband and my daughters who are at the Blacksburg High School Senior Band Night. I'm not there, I'm here instead. I stand in honor of our single parents, in honor of those who work long hours and cannot be here. I stand in honor of the smallest citizens who have no voice but ours. I stand here in honor of the 25% of our county that's bound by poverty, those who want better future for their children than they have for themselves. I'm here in honor of those who are afraid to speak to you, and they are present. I understand their concerns. Once upon a time, I was a single mother, and I had 6 children. My job was a minimum wage job. My kids were the free lunch kids. I visited food pantries more times than I can ever care to admit. And there were nights that I did not eat because my kids wanted second servings and I did not have enough dinner. I didn't know where our next meal was going to come from. So I get the fears that our citizens are bringing to you. I understand them. They're looking at reality. They are not looking at myths, and they are certainly not looking at misconceptions. They know that they cannot withstand this burden even with 15 months to prepare. When I learned about the time change, I was initially for it. I made the commitment to learn as much as I could. I have studied the science and the research behind this, and I've spent well over 90 hours looking at presentations, websites, reading research, studies, poring over your bus routes, deciphering the surveys. I've said to you in my emails, I want all of our students to be winners. I want all of our families to be winners. I want each one of you to be committed to making the best decision for all of our students. It takes a lot of courage to stand here, and you have a lot of personnel who are afraid to come before you. They're afraid for their jobs. I've spoken to the director of the School Start Later, and she has a lot of questions that I'm going to send to you. The last thing I want to say is that there is no shame in making a mistake. There's honor in admitting haste, and there's honor in changing course before it's too late.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Amy Hogan, and after Ms. Hogan is Dana Lacey.
Good evening. My name is Amy Hogan. I live at 506 Hartwood Crossing in Blacksburg. I spent a lot of time preparing very thoughtful and carefully timed notes for this evening, which I'm largely going to scrap because all I've been able to think about since this afternoon was the headline that I proudly read today. 4 Montgomery County schools recognized by the State Department of Education for excellent performance. 4 elementary schools. And I'm only left to wonder what that headline may look like 2, 3, 4 years or more from now, when our younger students are suffering the effects of inadequate sleep as a result of earlier start times. I came prepared to talk to you about the research on sleep needs in our younger kids and the fact that sound research shows us that these effects include decreased cognitive functioning, increased behavior problems, and decreased school performance. And I'm worried. I'm worried for my kids, our kids, and their future. So let me simply sum up by saying in the December surveys, the overwhelming majority of all of the categories of survey respondents responded that students' health and sleep was either number 1 or number 2 as the most important factor for consideration in this undertaking. It is of the utmost importance to all of us. The approved early start time for elementary schools will negatively impact sleep for our younger students. In turn, it will impact their cognitive functioning, their behavioral functioning, and ultimately their school performance and progress. But we have the ability, not we, you have the ability. You, Sarah, you, Joe, you, Goonan, you, Marty, you still have the ability to give further consideration to a solution that will allow all of our students' health and sleep needs to be met, to allow all of them to be successful in school for all of their years in our county. I hope you'll be open to giving this further consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Dana Lacey, and after Dana Lacey is Dennis Smith.
I'm Dana Lacey, I'm 1635 Sherwood Drive. Good evening, Board and Madam Supervisor. I once again come before you to plead for our children and my family. We see major flaws and concerns in the decision that was made. I sent you an email the other day with the story of my family and a link to the study that backs me, which is what I passed out. I hope you read it, as it was sincere and written with a lot of emotion. This is personal to me. There's no way that it can't be. The responsibility that lies on you is to make good decisions for all, not the possible good for one group and devastation of the family unit on the other side. No good decision has that big of a gap of benefit and risk. If your spectrum is that vast, I suggest that there is a compromise somewhere in the middle, in which I have one. Yes, the decision will more than likely improve the sleep patterns and maybe academics of those who have secondary students, but families like mine will have to wait 6 to 10 years to see any sort of potential benefit from this decision. Meanwhile, missing the childhood of our young kids, and that is time I don't get back. Because of your decision, any and every decision I make for my family will make me a bad parent. Number one, I could quit my job, but then I can't provide for my family. Then my husband will have to work more hours to compensate, thus making him the absent parent. We won't be able to pay our bills and risk losing everything we've worked hard for. Meanwhile, you lose your tax base to make up your budget. Number two, I can choose to let my kids stay up a while longer so I can spend some time with them during the week, fully knowing that they won't be at their best at school, but at least I didn't miss everything. Number three, I can put them to bed on time, not see them 4 days a week and miss their childhood. One of my biggest fears is my kids one day saying, "I wish mommy was here, she misses everything." What if my kids struggle and fail grades, suffer academically in elementary school, the basics, and then they won't be up to par when it comes to secondary, when they get this amazing benefit that they can sleep in because someone was looking out for them years ago, but then we'll have to play catch up with a great potential to fail. I just don't feel the research is there long term on the effects of this plan, which you have also admitted. There's a study done back in January 1999. It justifies my concerns, not to mention the UK study last year. The core values of this school board include a big word, accountability. In making this decision, are you sure that you want to be held accountable for what happens here on out to every student, every family in the county? That means not only taking credit for the improvement in adolescent academics, but the overall failure of the family unit. By voting for this move and against the overwhelming negatives of this proposition, this is what you are doing. You are saying you will be accountable for my family being ruined, my kids failing, my failure as a parent, because your decision directly put us in this predicament. Nothing more, nothing less. You're responsible. See if you can handle that respectfully.
Thank you. Next is Dennis Smith, and after Dennis Smith is Lori Root.
This is my son. Okay. I have an elementary age child with special needs and a middle school age child. My middle school age child is currently being watched each morning as she boards the bus. Under the proposed change in school start times, she will be boarding the bus without any adult presence at home. My wife today looked it up. There are at least 40 registered sex offenders whose residence or work are located within a 5-mile radius of my residence. That's very disturbing to me, especially if my kids are out there. This is a major safety concern for us as her parents. In 3 years, my elementary age child will be entering middle school. He has not yet developed self-help skills to get ready for the day unassisted. He does not understand the danger of traffic on the road. He is also incapable of boarding a school bus without assistance from a parent. The proposed change in school start times would prevent a parent from being present in the morning to assist him in boarding the bus. But as a parent, we will do what we have to do to be sure one of us is present to make sure he gets on a bus safely. However, this will require our entire schedule to change and cause additional strain on our family. Lastly, 4 members voted for this change, but only 2 have stated why they voted. 2 have not. Mrs. Graham, Ms. Woolsey, you're my representative. I would like to know why both of y'all have voted for this change. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Lori Roop, and after Lori Roop is Coltrane Moonrich. Please make sure when you come to the podium that you state your name and your address.
Lori is in the parking lot. She just got here. You wanna switch?
Let's go ahead and go on to Coltrane, and after Coltrane will be Crystal Zirkle.
I'm Coltrane Monrich. I live at 323 Newtown Road, Shawsville, Virginia, District C. Good evening, board members and Superintendent Mrs. Blackburn. We come to you today out of the utmost respect for what you do for our school systems. We understand that you care about our children and your best intentions is for them. But I do agree that this time change is not in the best interest of our children to excel in their education. I would like for you to listen to the reason, the logic, and the scientific data that we have brought to you or through the emails we have sent to you. The data that you thought was a myth, the data that you thought was a misconception. It is reality to all. The theory that elementary school kids will adapt and will not be affected is simply not true. The negative impact is far too great to look away. And we are not going away. The greater good of this community, the greater good of these families, and the greater good, and especially the greater good of the children, depend on it. So we ask for those who were in favor of the change to rescind your votes and to do what's best for this county. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Crystal Zirkle, and after Crystal Zirkle will be Rachel Lucas. Is Crystal Zirkle here? Okay. Rachel Lucas will be up next, and then after Rachel will be Tiffany Carroll.
Hi, my name is Rachel Lucas, and I live in Reiner, and I have 6-year-old twins that attend Auburn Elementary. I understand that change is necessary sometimes. However, I'm asking you to reconsider your decision on the new time change. Changing it in hopes to better suit middle and high school students is not preparing them for college, jobs, and the real world. It only gives most of them another excuse to stay up later. I realize your decision was partly based on trying to improve SOL scores. SOLs are very important, as well as getting an education, a good education. But so is family time, actually being a child, making memories, sports, dance, and so on. What about the safety of the younger children at bus stops when it is still dark and possibly being home alone until an older sibling is home from school? How will this affect a family with a special needs child or children when the normal routine like getting dressed in the morning, doing homework, baths, etc. are a challenge and can take twice as long as other children their age? I bet you have no clue what this is truly like. My children go to bed at 8 o'clock every night unless we have an event, practice, game, or something preventing us from doing so. Let me tell you, it is very stressful and rushed to have them in bed by 8 o'clock. Some families do not have older siblings to rely on to help with the younger children. How many people in our community will be affected by this decision? I see this being a financial burden for many due to having to pay for more daycare services. We know our children and lives better than you. This decision is not in the best interest of the kids, especially the younger ones. And it's not like it's just a few of us that disagree with this change. There are a lot of parents, grandparents, teachers, and bus drivers that are against this decision. So what should that tell you? And I can just say for my son, lack of sleep definitely causes him to have more behavioral problems and affects his concentration and things academically during the day at school. And I just appreciate you listening, and please reconsider this.
Thank you. Next up is Tiffany Carroll, and after Tiffany will be Stephen Castle.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Carroll, 600 South Franklin Street in Christiansburg. I'm here tonight to address the 2016-2017 proposed time change. After the last school board meeting, I was extremely upset. I do not fear a time change. I'm a mother. Change happens in my house daily. But I do fear the impact that it is going to have on all of the kids in Montgomery County. Like several others, I have lived in Montgomery County my whole life. I have been blessed to be able to raise my family here and to have their family around them. If this time change does take effect, there is a strong chance that we will have to move to accommodate. That is a real fear. My children currently catch the bus at 8:10 a.m. There has been several times that even with the bus stopped in broad daylight, we had people attempting to turn onto the street that runs adjacent to our house. Imagine a 5-year-old who doesn't have quick reaction time crossing the road having to catch the bus in the dark. That is a fear. My husband works 12-hour days. After working out of town, he took a job closer to home so he could see his children every day. With this time change, he will no longer be able to do that. There needs to be some research on the negative impact that it has on children who miss family meals or being at a child care provider for an extended amount of time. Parents being involved in their children's lives is extremely important in determining who they will be when they grow up. What is going to happen when you start sending smaller children to school who haven't seen their families? What about the behavioral issues in these children? That is my fear. I will have a middle schooler, an elementary school student, and a preschool when this happens. I have a wide range of kids that this will affect, not just because my kids are small, but because I see how this will affect them at every age and every school. I am not saying the board hasn't done their research. All I'm asking is you do a little more research on the other side. Not just research that helps make the case. Listen, pay attention to what we are saying here today and will continue to say. Turning your head and acting like we aren't here isn't going to change anything. We're still going to be here. I'm asking you to allow more time to think, to at least address it again without saying a quick no or having no discussion. Next time you're with your family, keep in mind all the families, all the children of Montgomery County, and how we all deserve to be heard. We are speaking for those who can't speak, our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Stephen Castle, and after Stephen Castle is, I think it's Zanka Snyder. Ms. Snyder, if I butchered your name, I'm sorry.
Hello, my name is Stephen Castle. I live at 102 E. Hart Street, Southeast in Blacksburg, Virginia. Good evening. I'm here to support an administrator at Gilbert Lincoln Elementary. I know there is information regarding her situation that I'm not aware of that will come to light once the specific case is handled in the judicial system. However, what I am concerned about and why I'm here tonight is the perception that is being cast on her since she has been placed on administrative leave. The perception, as I have seen and had conversations with others, is that she is already guilty in the eyes of the Montgomery County school system. This is evidenced by the fact that there is an open position and currently accepting resumes for principal at Gilbert Lincoln Elementary. I have no other logical explanation for that posting other than you have already determined this administrator will not be allowed to return to that position of principal at Gilbert Lincoln regardless of the outcome in her court case. What else are we expected to believe when we see an ad such as this? You have the opportunity to support an educator that has provided numerous years of outstanding service to Montgomery County schools and made Gilbert Lincoln Elementary not only one of the best schools in Montgomery County, but one of the best schools in the state of Virginia. Instead of supporting her, you have chosen to distance yourself from her and wipe your hands clean of this situation. What message does that send to other teachers and employees within the Montgomery County school system? I have known this administrator for almost 10 years now, and through the years, I've only seen professionalism and a great respect for her position, her fellow educators, and her students. My son attended Gilbert Lincoln from kindergarten through 5th grade, and I currently have a daughter who is in 2nd grade there. This administrator is Gilbert Lincoln Elementary School. Gilbert Lincoln is her. She loves that school. She loves each and every one of those children who has attended and is currently enrolled there. I urge you to take a step back and evaluate the long-term effect of your actions in deciding to post for a new principal at Gilbert Lincoln. GLE was able to function effectively with a temporary acting principal this past few months. What is the harm in continuing this plan with another individual until a final resolution in the case is complete? Replacing this administrator might be the easy solution, but it doesn't make it the right solution. Please let her situation be settled in the courts before you pass judgment on her. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Snyder. After Ms. Snyder is Paula. I'm sorry, Paula, I don't know your last name. It's Hortalop, I think, or yeah. You can correct me when you come up.
Good evening. My name is Cyrus Snyder. I'm in 2655 Yarrow Road. My son started coming to Gilbert Lincoln, and I would like to speak in support of our principal. My little boy is now 9 years old and came in 2011 to the school. Like any new parents, even that I'm a pediatrician, you always still get afraid when your little one goes to school, you know. But I had very good feedback from other parents from that school. It was a family type of school where parents are always allowed to come, where parents are always welcome to come, to volunteer no matter time. I mean, my time, unfortunately, is a little bit short, so I will try to go there post-call, and I was always welcome by the principal and by all the teachers. We're very glad to have, and we're very proud to be now a Blue Ribbon school, and I think it's a product of not only the students and the parents and the teachers, but Miss Carol, too. She is Gilbert Lincoln. I mean, since you walk in, she's always eager to help. I saw her several times helping kids that don't have the opportunities like my kid has. And I was always there to help when I was called several times to help those kids too. I think everybody deserves to be here and to have a chance to defend themselves. And I really hope that Miss Carol gets that chance through your eyes too. Because for us, she's still our principal, and we're very proud of her work through all these years. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Paula, and after Paula is Debbie Zier.
Good evening. My name is Paula Ortelu, and well, I just want to support the administrator and say that she has such a good human, heart, and she gives everything for the school, and honestly, yeah, she invites you to be involved in your kids' education and involved with the school. What else, do you want to have? I think she's great, so just want to support as a principal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Debbie Zier, and after Debbie is Becky Gruber.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Zier. My address is 206 Watson Avenue in Blacksburg. I actually live right across the street from Gilbert Lincoln. We moved here 10 years ago with my 3 young children. We purposely bought a house the Gilbert-Lincoln district, and I wanted to be across the street, so I would make sure that nobody could move me out. And after 10 years, my third child is graduating from Gilbert-Lincoln this May. It's bittersweet for me at this point because there will not be someone there that I believe should be there. My daughter is very disappointed that there will not be someone there that should be there. But after 10 years, 3 kids, I think it was the right choice for us to be at Gilbert-Lincoln. With the quality of leadership that's been there, with the teaching, the quality of teaching, that's obviously worthy of a blue ribbon. It's definitely been the right choice for us. And it's my hope that when the time comes, that you will all kiss your brain and do the right thing to ensure that Gilbert-Lincoln will remain a blue ribbon school and the place to be by standing behind the quality leadership that has been there for many years. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Becky Gruber, and after Becky Gruber is Tiffany Moltner.
Hello, my name is Becky Gruber. I live at 20 Broad Street. I am a special education teacher, and I have been for the last 8 years. Prior to this year, I taught at Gilbert-Lincoln Elementary School. There are so many positive things that I can and I do say about MCPS, and I do speak highly of it whenever possible. As a previous teacher at GLE, I can attest to the many wonderful things that the leadership put in place, including starting a before and after school enrichment program, inviting Virginia Tech students to come and mentor underprivileged and low-achieving students. GLE had a global environment of high standards for student learning. During the spring semester, students who were not meeting grade level expectations were targeted and received tutoring during school hours. These are just a few of the administration initiatives that led to GLE being named a Blue Ribbon School this year. I believe the decisions made by this school board during this transitional time will set an example for the future. Myself, along with Southwest Virginia, is looking to this school board to set a wise, fair, and just precedence for all the people involved. I traveled over an hour to be here today because my personal experience working in this district compels me to support MCPS, Gilbert-Lincoln Elementary, and Carol Kaler. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Drake, are we okay on time right now? Are we okay on time, Ms. Drake? Okay. Next up is Tiffany, and after Tiffany is William Cox.
Good evening. I'm Tiffany Moltner, 601 Jefferson Street, Blacksburg, Virginia. Settled? Happy settled? And I would have to second and third what I've heard up here so far regarding Carol Kaler. I think we understand that you guys aren't allowed to speak about personnel and police matters, but the problem in Blacksburg is right now that we have somebody who was a stellar leader in our community, in our school and our community, and she is having some trouble now. And because we have a lack of information and there's a lack of transparency, we don't understand what is going on, really and truly. In addition to what these people have said, Carol has, in particular, in addition to knowing every student and every family at GLE, has started programs to help at-risk students and students with special needs. I have a program at GLE called Individual Education Pups, where I bring registered therapy dogs into the school to help kids with special needs reach their IEP goals and objectives. So she is really a champion for all of these students. And what we are seeing, because of the lack of information, we've got holes and gaps in what we know, and those are being filled with rumor, innuendo, and a growing distrust for the school board. It appears at this point to us, not knowing anything better, not knowing what the policy is for people who've been not been convicted of a crime at this point, we're not sure why she is being replaced when there has not been a jury trial. So I would say give due process a chance, give us more information so we can understand where the policy is coming from that is driving this quick response to replace her.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're ready.
Next up is
Mr.
William
Ryan.
Cox, and after William Cox
Now
is
we're ready.
Nancy. I'm sorry.
Now we're ready.
No, okay. All right, I'm sorry, we've reached our 30-minute time limit. Is there a motion among the board members to extend our public address time?
How many speakers are there left?
There are three, well, there are two that are signed up, and I think I saw Lori Root come in. Are there any additional folks who want to speak who did not sign up? Would you please raise your hand right now?
I move that we hear the rest of the speakers.
All right, so that'd be three speakers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion before we move on? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we will hear those three speakers, William Cox, Nancy Henderson, and Lori Roop.
I had signed up, and I got a confirmation I was signed up.
What was your name?
Yeah, my motion was that we hear the rest of the speakers.
Okay.
That's whoever's out there.
Okay, I will add your name. Okay, so it'll be forward. What's your name again? Kim Rose.
Hello, my name is William Cox, 4195 Fortress Drive, Blacksburg, Virginia. I don't have anything prepared, but I do want to make known that myself, my wife, and there's a whole bunch of supporters back there for Carol Kaler. I'll give you my personal experience. My son was in school in the Harding District, which is where we lived. He was there for a full year, and then the beginning of his second year there, he wasn't having a good experience, and been in this town about 8 years now, and have a lot of friends, colleagues that have been in this area for quite a long time, and have spoke very highly of Gilbert Lincoln, specifically Carol Kaler as well. So my wife and I were fortunate enough that we were allowed to transfer my son into the school. However, we had to move eventually, and Carol was there for us, welcomed us with open arms, made us feel very comfortable. And the decision whether or not we should go forward with my son or to have him repeat the year, she was extremely helpful, and she's been great. I don't know the details, but I think replacing her or trying to get a replacement for her, the fact that, she's innocent until proven guilty. And I would encourage that we keep that spot for her for now, instead of trying to replace her. So that's all I'd like to say.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Next, Nancy Henderson, please.
My name is Nancy Henderson, and I'm a former fifth grade teacher at GLE, and now I am assisting at GLE as well. Over the past 25 years, I've worked for Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, and Montgomery County Public Schools. Each system has their positive aspects. Our school system has implemented the best of these practices with the open input of its citizens. We evaluate first without jumping into decisions as often as possible, though many may grumble and disagree. I appreciate the professional manner in which this situation has been handled. When I first arrived at GLE in 2009, I asked Ms. Kaler what I could do to make GLE the place to be. That's a favorite phrase of hers. At that time, I never imagined the impact one individual could have on an entire school. She lives and breathes GLE from her very soul. Her immediate response was, 5 years ago, I want to do all we can to make GLE a blue ribbon school. During my tenure at GLE, I observed firsthand the love she has for her students, staff, and extended GLE family. She has an extremely diverse group of students. She embraces all of them. I worked personally with some of very challenging situations. She was always professional and mindful of everyone involved. Last year, I asked her if she would fund all of fifth grade to participate in the stock market games. She said, of course. We had a third place team. This year, we had second and third place teams in the Virginia Tech region. She always advocates for all students to rise to their highest potential. GLE also has a very diverse population of teachers. Every one of them exemplify the best in teaching in their own way, but we all have different unique ways of bringing out that best in our students. I've seen this as a colleague and as a parent of a now fifth grader. Ms. Kaler's always willing, she gives us the wings to soar to achieve our goals and reach our potential. She wants us to be the best teachers possible, and not just for our students, but for ourselves. She also supports a very diverse group of parents. Many of them have spoken tonight. Stories of compassion and insight have been shared. I am sure that the board will consider all things shared, the VDOE report cards from GLE, her long dedication to the school and Montgomery County in general. I have faith in the members of this board to assess the needs of the students, faculty, and community. Becoming a Blue Ribbon school is an honor bestowed on the most dedicated schools. GLE is having our celebration soon. It is a shame she won't be able to be with her devoted students and staff to celebrate. I wasn't there in November when they celebrated in Washington. The light has been flickering at GLE since March. You, this school board, have the ability to kindle the flame that can reignite the best in education, or you can torch a fire that will consume what makes GLE the place to be. All of us are looking to you, our elected board, for your insight. As more situations like this occur across our great nation, your actions will be strongly scrutinized more carefully because the unique circumstances of GLE, being one of 287 public schools to receive Blue Ribbon distinction in 2014. 287, one out of 10 in the state of Virginia.
I'm sorry, your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Kim Rose.
Kim Rhodes, 30 Colon Court, Christiansburg, Chairman Lyons District. I'd first like to thank each one of you for serving on the board. Your service is appreciated. I am speaking today to ask that the board reconsider the decision on the time change for Montgomery County Public Schools. As there has been much discussion on both sides of the issue with regard to the time change, I would like to highlight some of the important impacts this change will bring. The public has been told that studies have been performed in other areas that younger children are more apt to learn at earlier hours than middle or high school students. This is a broad generalization that has many inconclusive components as well. It is not a one-size-fits-all solution. There have been numerous studies released recently that point to younger elementary children needing more than 8 hours of sleep in order to learn. We must keep in mind that these are the formative years, and young children are sponges that need to soak up the fundamentals of learning. These ages are when our children need the basic building blocks in order to prepare them for their older school years. We will be doing a great disservice to our children, our futures, by cutting their sleep time, getting them up so early for school, and forcing them to learn at an earlier hour. Parents have spoken tonight about parents missing quality time to spend with their children before their children have to go off to bed in order to get enough rest. We now live in a society where some households have both parents working in order to provide for their families, working until 5 p.m., not getting home till 5:30, getting dinner on the table, getting homework projects completed, lunches made for the day, bath, shower time, for some after-school activities, and maybe some reading time, which elementary school children should have every night. We have single-parent households that have more than one child to care for, which leaves one person performing all the duties in the household. We are exhausted trying to keep up with the struggles in an effort to provide a good life for their children, and all we are asking is for some help to ease our jobs just a little. A study came out in the news just this morning from the London School of Economics indicating that perhaps cell phones and electronics should be banned from middle and high schools. In schools they have been banned, student scores rose. Interesting to think that there are so many studies being performed that are pointing to different reasons for low test scores. Let's not jump on the bandwagon and assume that the only reason why test scores are low is because of the time of day teens are cognitive. This is a generalization which does not pertain to all students, and lots of other factors should be taken into consideration. Those of us that completed the survey concluded that the survey conveyed the majority of the community was against the change. What we're asking for tonight is just for a little more consideration on the matter, a little more time to explore, and to let the people be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Lori Roop.
Really need my address again. It's Lori Roop, 506 Switchback Road, and I apologize for being late, but my daughter has a recital this week, so that took precedence, no offense. Again, I come to you guys with a heavy heart about the time changes. And I understand what it's like to balance a budget. I understand what you guys are, what stress you guys are under to do your jobs, and I get that. I'm a single mom. I've been on the PTA board at Bellevue Elementary School for the last 5 years, and I just got newly elected again to serve another term. I understand you have stress, but listen to your constituents. They're telling you we don't want this. They're telling you to please, if you're going to push this, why not do some more research? Look at the elementary. Look at both sides of the spectrum, not just one. That's all I'm going to ask. Look at your safety issues with your bus routes. How can you safely push an hour route into 45 minutes? Look at your elementary students who are Title I students who have free and reduced lunch and breakfast. Can you safely ask a child to eat breakfast in 10 minutes by the time they go through that line? Would you eat your breakfast in 10 minutes in order to not miss instruction time? And again, ride your bus routes. See what they are. Look at every single aspect that is there. That's all I'm asking. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, I just want to make sure I did not miss anyone who had signed up, who wanted to speak. By seeing no one, public address is now closed. Now move on to consent items. Board members, if there's nothing to pull from consent, as you can see there, including the minutes and field trips, we will consider consent items approved. Very good. Next up is the personnel report. May I have a motion to accept the personnel report?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
The personnel report is approved. Moving on to the financial reports, we need to pay the bills. May I have a motion to pay the bills?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of paying the bills, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bills have been paid. Next is the financial summary report. May I have a motion to accept the financial summary report?
So move. Second.
Any discussion at all? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The financial summary report is approved. We will now move on. I will now turn it over to Mrs. Blackburn, who will take us through her reports, recommendations, and announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Dr. Graham is going to introduce our presentation this evening. I would like to say just a few words, and we have instructional coaches with us this evening who are supporting the teachers at their schools with challenging tasks of planning, teaching, analyzing assessment data, monitoring student progress, and providing remediation. Currently, the district has 5 elementary coaches supporting reading and mathematics and 6 secondary coaches supporting mathematics. At tonight's meeting, the presentation will be on the role of the coaches by the in the elementary schools. With that, Dr. Graham.
Thank you, Ms. Blackburn, board members. Tonight we will continue our presentations regarding the work of our coaches. Our elementary coaches will be joined by a principal and a classroom teacher. They will each introduce themselves so that you can put a name with a face. And they will share a little regarding their work as it relates to our model for effective instruction. We will begin.
Good evening. My name is Teresa Epperly, and I'm instructional specialist at Eastern Montgomery Elementary and contact person for Gilbert Lincoln Elementary. Tonight, the other instructional specialists and I, along with one of our classroom teachers and a principal, would like to share with you the way our position is impacting our county's focus on effective instruction. I will begin with our first step as instructional specialists, building relationships. It is important to develop relationships with our administrators, colleagues, students, and communities in order to be seen as instructional leaders in reading and mathematics within our schools. This has been helped greatly in the past 2 years because of the support we have received from the board to keep our coaches. Most of us are able to be at one Title I school all the time and offer support to just one other school. When we are in the building all the time, teachers, students, and communities see us as a trusted member of the school. We are able to attend grade level meetings, faculty meetings, and school-based intervention team meetings where we can continue to develop relationships by offering our support and knowledge of best practices in teaching, remediation, and differentiation. We attend school functions where parents and community members are invited to the school for special events. We are also seen as a bridge between the schools and the instructional supervisors at the school board office. Teachers often come to us with questions and concerns about county initiatives and practices, and we are able to share with them what we know or to find answers. However, we have to have good relationships with teachers in order for them to trust us with their questions and concerns. Our instructional specialist team was able to attend a conference in Daleville in October that focused on how to effectively build relationships in our positions by opening up communication and collaboration with teachers in a way that would not be viewed as evaluative. Because we are not in schools to evaluate teachers, but instead to support them in the education of all students in a way that engages, encourages, and empowers everyone.
Words cannot express the effect that Mrs. Epperly has had on my teaching, and based on the feedback that I received, many other teachers have had the same experience. My name is Laura Thronberg, and I'm a third grade teacher at Eastern Montgomery Elementary School. When I look back at my last 2 years at EMES, one of the constants that stand out in my mind is Mrs. Epperly. She's constantly listening, constantly helping, constantly calming, and constantly supporting. I can remember feeling as if I could barely keep my head above water, ready to throw in the towel, and then in an instant there was Mrs. Epperly with words of encouragement, ideas to improve instruction, and resources so that those ideas could become reality the next day. The problem with feedback, both good and bad, in order to implement, it often takes hours or days to organize the data, create engaging activities to remediate, and then put it into action. But with Miss Epperly, feedback is always good. It's always helpful. She spends countless hours creating and organizing data sheets based off unit tests, benchmarks, and the SOL simulation. She then shares that data with teachers as a way to remediate. She's always lending her resources to use with her remediation so that we don't have to create everything from scratch. She's willing to do anything that she can to help the students. She helps in the classroom with whole group instruction, small group, or working one-on-one with students. Without her support, it would be very difficult to have the time to do all of this, and instruction would suffer. It would be much more difficult to differentiate effectively. If I think about the amount of time she has selflessly devoted to me to make me the best teacher I can be, and then multiply that by the 52 other teachers that she works with at Eastmont and Gilbert Lincas, I'm left wondering how she even has the time to do it. But she does, and she does it with such grace. Miss Epperly and her fellow instructional specialists work hard to ensure the success of everyone around them, and they have certainly exceeded my expectations.
Good evening. I'm Jenny Conrad, and I work at Bellevue Elementary School, and I serve as the support person at Margaret Beeks. As instructional specialist, it's imperative that we have in-depth content knowledge in reading and math. Teachers often ask us questions regarding the SOLs and ask us to interpret or unpack the standards. This year, we have been working on unpacking the standards or pulling them apart to determine the prior knowledge students need to have to build up to their grade level standard. Some schools have been writing I can statements to help motivate students by what they can do and to help them make progress. We have met with teachers during grade level meetings to plan for instruction. Together, we make sure that the content and cognitive level aligns with the SOLs. We help teachers plan for higher level thinking questions and activity to increase the rigor for all students. We use our content and cognitive level to bring changes in planning, assessment, and rigor to help students and teachers make gains. We also use information that has been released by the Virginia Department of Education, such as the reading release test and the math performance analysis, which enable us to assist teachers' planning. We have planned for activities, gathered resources, and made assessments that match the target areas for each of those resources. We also manage online programs for students and teachers, such as iStation, Interactive Achievement, and Reflex Math, to track progress and plan for instruction. We help teachers find data and lessons to target specific instruction for their students.
Good evening. I'm Dawn Wilson, instructional specialist at Christiansburg, Christiansburg Elementary School, Christiansburg Primary School, and contact for Harding Avenue Elementary. Instructional strategies are techniques teachers use to help students become independent, strategic learners. As instructional specialists, we assist teachers with these strategies with the goal that being that students internalize them and become independent strategies. There is no one best strategy, so we provide help in the areas of comprehension, vocabulary, fluency, spelling, problem solving, active participation, conceptual understanding, reasoning, and application, to name but a few. We are involved in both district level and school site-based work on instructional strategies. At the district level, we've shared strategies with 4th and 5th grade teachers in a series of half-day sessions focusing on increasing higher level questioning strategies, author's purpose and inferencing, using graphic organizers, incorporating read-alouds and think-alouds into whole group instruction, and storyboarding. We participated alongside school teams in word study training, which will be shared with teachers at schools in the fall. We assisted principals in delivering district-driven professional development at our schools in the areas of student engagement, active participation, and higher order thinking. At each of our school sites, we meet with teachers on an individual, small group, and whole group basis to work on site-specific instructional strategies. We lead teachers in the use of the 6-minute solution to assist with fluency, develop technology activities such as flippity games to increase student engagement and participation, develop read-aloud lessons in reading and math to bridge whole group to small group instruction, create vocabulary previews and reviews for language arts and math, and develop standards-based math games to build reasoning and conceptual understanding. Since each building has different needs, we work with our principals to target specific strategies, yet we also come together to share these pieces with each other so students and teachers across the county can benefit from a variety of instructional strategies.
Good evening. I'm Stacey Jones, and I'm an instructional specialist splitting time at both Falling Branch and Auburn Elementary Schools. In the following moments, I will be addressing engagement as it pertains to individual student performance. Promoting engagement starts with the concept of teaching the teacher, allowing us to reach more students throughout the county. This includes delivering professional development that promotes student engagement to teachers on increasing student response rates and higher order thinking. During these professional development workshops, strategies for student engagement were modeled, the impact engagement has on student performance was analyzed using research-based instructional strategies, and hands-on opportunities to implement these ideas were incorporated by co-planning lessons with teachers. These lessons gradually evolved into higher-level tasks that promote student engagement by using a research-based framework for higher-order thinking known as Bloom's taxonomy. Principals and instructional specialists have worked together to provide teachers with feedback on student engagement by conducting learning walks. Within these learning walks, we perform classroom observations looking for specific dimensions of engagement, including student response rates, active learning, and higher-order thinking. As a result, these learning walks provide critical feedback to inform the county of effective professional development that will work towards the division's commitment to continuous improvement. Classroom teachers have invited us into their classrooms seeking help for implementation of the instructional strategies presented in the professional development based off of the learning walks. In this environment, we've been able to model, plan, and co-teach with classroom teachers, but more specifically, we've been able to give them feedback on student response rates and higher order thinking, along with strategies to improve and incorporate more opportunities for enhanced student engagement. We provide job-embedded professional development where teachers are able to practice, learn, receive feedback, and master the instructional strategies Dawn discussed. These steps, when carefully administered by a team consisting of the teacher, principal, and instructional specialist, will yield increased student engagement and elevate classroom performance.
When we considered the area of application, we thought about modeling and coaching for teachers. This year, we have modeled interactive read-aloud lessons, the usage of Google Drive to share resources, the usage of Plickers, which is a way to increase student engagement, station work, inferencing, and questioning strategies for the 4th and 5th grade teachers through a series of professional development. We have also modeled lessons within our buildings on topics and subjects when teachers request help. Several of our schools have also had after-school or weekend tutoring programs. For these programs, we have been responsible for helping them run effectively by providing teachers with data, grouping students according to levels that would make an effective group, and building assessments to monitor growth. Instructional specialists have had the opportunity to provide teachers feedback on lessons. After observing lessons, we provide classroom teachers with direct feedback regarding instructional strategies for targeted improvement based on both student data and performance during the observation. This has brought about an increase in student response rates, active learning, and targeted instruction for all students.
Good evening. My name is Natasha Pappas. I'm instructional specialist for Price's Fork and the contact person for Kipps Elementary. The final piece of the model is assessment. In the past, an assessment could have been a reason for students to become nervous to take a test and then to go home and have to share that grade with their family. We have started showing teachers and students how an assessment can become part of the instructional piece. We started this process by making data sheets for the teachers so that they could see how their class had performed on an assessment. We created many sheets for the teachers to see each piece of the data and understand how each piece is important when analyzed. One sheet was broken down per teacher with each question. The names of the students that missed each question were logged onto the sheets. Each teacher now knows exactly who missed each question and can now pull a small group together to do some quick remediation, instead of reteaching this skill to the whole class when possibly only 5 or 6 students missed this question. This helps teachers. Another sheet we created compared question percentage data to the other teachers in their school. This helps teachers get ideas from one another. If one teacher did not do as well on a question and another teacher did do well, then it becomes a conversation of, I see your class did really well on number 6 and my class didn't do so well. What activity did you do to get your students to understand this skill? We also keep data sheets of all the assessments that the students have taken. This way we can keep a close eye on who is making progress and who is not. This information is helpful for conferences with parents and for meetings when we are decide if we need to refer a child to special ed. A new piece we put in place this year for math is to do smaller unit assessments rather than the 3 large assessments at the end of each 9 weeks. There were a few differences in these assessments compared to the older ones. Since there were more, they were shorter. But we like this concept better because it gave us data sooner rather than having to wait until the end of the 9 weeks. Remediation can start sooner, and this gives students more time to spend on a skill to develop a better understanding. Another difference is that these unit assessments were no longer a secure test. This means that the teachers had the opportunity to see the assessment before they began planning their unit. If they know what is expected of their students, then they can then plan accordingly. Now that the expedited retakes are in the elementary schools, it is enforcing the importance of teachers analyzing the data to see where students are still struggling. We are there to help teachers to look at the data and come up with a plan to remediate these students so that they can retake their SOLs. So yes, we do have several assessments in place, but there is meaning behind the assessments. The most important part is not the students taking the assessment, but it's the data that the teachers take from the assessments. We are there to help teachers understand this data and plan engaging lessons and activities to help all students reach their potential. And we also have a principal here that is going to speak in support of us as well.
Good evening. I'm Tara Grant, principal of Bellevue Elementary School. Last year, Bellevue did not meet the requirements for state accreditation in reading. This put us in an accredited with warning status for reading. This past year, with assistance from our instructional specialist, Jenny Conrad, Bellevue was able to implement a wide variety of research-based interventions and best practice strategies that were targeted at helping Bellevue students become stronger readers and more efficient learners. Some of these initiatives included the collection, analysis, and interpretation of data, coordinating weekly grade level and school-wide data meetings, assisting with the coordination and hiring of both an SOL tutor and a literacy aide, and developing a master schedule. Additionally, our instructional specialists developed planning instruments for grade level planning meetings and school-wide planning tools. Those planning instruments were critical in planning and reflecting on our practices and refining our crafts as teachers. These changes have resulted in more targeted, focused instruction for individual children and our school as a whole. SOL testing ends Friday, and we're all cheering inside. And it appears that Bellevue is on its way towards measurable improvement. This is a direct result of our instructional specialist involvement, and for that I am grateful. It's my hope that the instructional specialist position will continue to be available in future years for schools who are in need of instructional support. Thank you.
Any questions, board members? I want to take patterns for 400, Alex.
I do have some questions, actually. So I know that the goal is to get a lot of these, or a majority of these students to a Tier 1 level. And so what are you guys doing to get them there before they fail? So, you know, the bad part is they fail, and then we have to try to get them there. What things are in place before that?
We've put several interventions in place this year. One is the 6-minute solution. Several schools have adopted that, and what it is it's a fluency program. Some of our students have trouble reading fluently, and it slows them down on the testing. And if they can't read the test fluently, then it takes them forever to take it, and their stamina drops and their scores drop. So we have implemented the 6-minute solution at several schools to help students learn to read more quickly on text that's on their level. Some other things that we have done this year is, as Natasha said, the shorter and closer together unit assessments. That way teachers can monitor progress as they go instead of waiting until the very end or the end of the 9 weeks or the big benchmark test. Teachers are more aware as the year progresses instead of waiting until the end.
Can I tag on to that question?
Sure.
So you have indicators. Youngsters are coming in, they're not failing, but you have indicators that will tell you we need to work with these youngsters so that failure is not part of it.
We also keep data sheets at our school that go from year to year. So we compile lots of different pieces of data, such as their PALS report or their F&P, their Fontes and Pinnell scores, and their SOL scores, and any end of the 9 weeks assessments, and they're all in one spot so that we can look and see, okay, this kid is struggling all the way across the board, or look, something really great happened here. What happened to make this kid improve, and what can we go back to in order to help continue their progress?
So following on that, good lead in to my question. So let's say a student is, for the SOL for reading, they are allowed to read aloud to someone, hopefully sitting next to them, who's not busy texting or something. Anyway, and they do awesome. They pass their reading SOL. Is that automatically in place for that child to have the next year?
Well, I think we help communicate those ideas from grade to grade. So when something happens in one grade level that really works for that child, not only do we help facilitate those discussions between teachers as students move on, we also help with that as we're planning for how to do groupings and so forth for the next year for SOL testing. Something that I think probably most of us do in the schools that we're in all of the time is we help with class placements for the next year. And part of that is just information cards about the students. So when, for example, Laura Thronberg gets her class list for next year, she already has information on those students. Data that she has, things that that work for them when they're having an off day, those kinds of things. So helping to facilitate those things happening and being passed from year to year.
So it's not automatic. It's something that the teacher would then again have to request, right?
Correct.
Unless they have an IEP or a 504
Sure.
which designates.
Right, sure.
We're going to do everything we can for all kids to be successful. So if we know that works, we're going to do it for them.
Okay.
So that help. And I just wanted to say the instructional specialists look at data K-5. It's not just an SOL thing. So it is a whole, like over time, they're looking at data and what interventions have helped from year to year.
Right. Okay. And do you guys actually go in the classroom and work with the kids and see if what you're suggesting is helping?
As a classroom teacher and working with Teresa, she's been in my classroom to help with engagement, just to observe me. She's given me supplies. I've seen her next door in other third grade classrooms working with small group and individual students who need that extra little push to get there. So they definitely are working with all the students.
Okay. And are you guys as part of committees, or do you do like cafeteria duty and things like that like the other teachers?
They do everything.
Okay.
Everything at our school. If we need something, if I need something at my school, I go to Teresa and she has the answer. And if she doesn't have the answer, she gets the answer. I don't know what I would do without Teresa.
Okay. And I know you guys have some performance data for 2014. Do you have any idea, since we get results back immediately on SOLs, what it's looking like for 2015?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
You know, I mentioned we were accredited with morning and reading, but it looks like we're going to pass with flying colors with everything. So I really think that this year we've worked really hard, and our instructional specialist, Jenny, has been a very, very large part, along with, you know, committed teachers and everyone being on board to do what's necessary for the kids to be successful. And I don't know a teacher at any school that wouldn't do that. So they have been wonderful support for the whole school.
Congratulations.
That's good news. Thanks.
Do you folks get a chance, two things, do you folks get a chance to get together as a group and share what's successful at different schools, delete what doesn't seem to be working, and does that happen?
We usually meet for a half day once a week and share
wonderful.
resources and ideas between the schools. So recently we've even split up several tasks and said we're each going to do one and then compile them and share them out with all the schools. So we're trying to work smarter and not harder as far as making all of the resources for the schools.
And my last question is, can you go to page 6?
Maybe.
Who is that kid?
It was part of one of the school board's PowerPoint presentations that they did for us.
Perfect.
And
That is perfect.
so we shared it with the teachers and part of our PD, and I thought it was fitting for the slide.
Yeah.
I hope that kid's getting some kickback, because he's been used on a lot of things.
There's no doubt he can do it.
I have a quick question. When you say you're the contact person for a specific school, what does that mean? How often are you at that school? What is that?
Being a contact person, it kind of depends on the needs of that building. The teachers can contact us, or they can contact the principal, who in turn would contact us. Whenever we're sharing things, we share that with the principal as well. Anytime there's something coming through that we're sharing with our teachers, we're sending it to that school as well. Since we're not there all the time, we try to do everything that we can do to kind of keep them in the know as well, if you will, because as I mentioned earlier, we're kind of that go-between between the instructional supervisors and the schools. So we try to, anytime we do anything like that, we share it with our buildings, and then we share it with our contact schools as well.
So you said a half a day every week. You're basically doing teacher planning together?
We also use that time somewhat to build assessments for the county. We are responsible for building the reading and math assessments as far as the benchmarks go. So getting together and pooling our ideas for that is really important, and checking each other's work and making sure that those are the most high quality assessments that we can put out for all of the students in the county. And also, to add on to your question about the contact schools, we keep mostly in contact with the principals, but they email us, teachers email us frequently for resources. If Jonathan or Judy brings anything to us that is new this year. So like we did Scholastic Math Inventory. We kind of carried the message of that and how it was supposed to be used to our contact schools as well. And some of us went and helped facilitate that happening at the school.
Mm-hmm. How many hours per week would you say you're in front of a kid sitting, working with children?
It varies from school to school and from week to week, depending on what time of the year it is and what's going on in the building.
And you were talking about the benchmarks. Do you track just the benchmarks, and do you also then, on top of that, track, over the year so that you can see maybe a pattern for certain students?
We look a lot, we track a lot of questions. When we do make our assessments, we go back and look at different questions from year to year. If we do happen to use the same questions, on which kinds of questions they did better on or did worse on, or where they're struggling more. And we try to change up some questions to make sure that we're hitting the questions to further increase those skills. But we do track the child's score as well. We know that what they scored on their benchmark, and we do like to keep that data to see if we can use the benchmarks or the SOL simulation test as a predictor for if they're going to pass their SOL test.
But do you track other things other than the benchmarks, like, grades and...
We do look at grades. Since in math this year, since we did move more down to the smaller unit assessments rather than the benchmarks at the end of each 9 weeks, it gave us a better picture on where they were struggling a lot sooner than waiting till the end of the 9 weeks. So that told a teacher at the end of this division unit, we still have 3 kids who didn't understand it, so we're going to continue to remediate those kids as we move on to the next skill.
We also have access to Trackbook, which does pull in the benchmark scores and their SOL scores and their PAL scores and any other major assessment that happens, as well as their grades and their behavior and their attendance. So if we want a wide picture of what that child is doing, we can get on Trackbook and look at all of that information in one place.
Right. And you mentioned iStation. Is that kind of being phased out, or how often do you use it?
iStation was a new program to most schools this year.
Okay.
It is a computer program where they take a once-a-month assessment, and it targets the instruction for the rest of that month towards what their monthly assessment says they need. So it's individualized instruction for every student, and they get on the computer and they wear the headphones. And in kindergarten, it will start off with letter recognition and typing, like even practicing typing their name. And then it moves up and shows them books. And we can even print those books so the kids can have them in their hands. And then it works on comprehension and fluency and word identification. And there's so many parts and components to iStation. And there's also a teacher component to iStation where the teachers can get on and view their data. The data can be as specific as looking at the questions that they were asked on the assessment and saying, this is what question was asked, this is what they put, this is how long it took them to answer. So you can really get an interesting picture of what's going on with a child. There's also teacher-directed lessons on iStation. So when a teacher looks at a report, they can get on iStation and find all of the students who struggled with vocabulary. And then iStation provides a teacher-directed lesson that meets those kids' needs. And you can move throughout the tiers in order to move them from Tier 3 or Tier 2 to Tier 1. And that's the goal, and we've been tracking their progress throughout the year. And I've had a second grade teacher say that the increase in PAL scores across this year has been impacted greatly in a positive way because of iStation.
Okay. I just know that computers in general aren't always the best way for a lot of children to learn, so I was just curious how much that was being used.
Usage depends on the school. Some schools are using it more than others. A lot of teachers are using it in rotations, so when they would not be with a teacher, they would be getting instruction from another source. So it's not time that they have free, but time that's directly instructed by the computer, which knows what they need based on their assessments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, I want to start off by saying thank you. Yeah, I'm sitting here, and every time there's a presentation about our instructional coaches, I picture myself in my classroom in elementary school. and my children in their classroom and their classmates and my classmates, and thinking about what a difference in lives would have been if this resource had been in place at that time. It would be amazing. I cannot begin to tell you some of the things that did not happen because there was not another set of eyes watching what was going on in the classroom. You were in a classroom with one teacher and their eyes to look at all the children and figure out what they were going to do or what they weren't going to do, depending on what their goals were for their class or for particular children in their classes. I understand that there's some people, let's just be honest about what's going on here. There's some people who are not comfortable and are not embracing the help and the guidance that you are giving to help our students. And that's the number one goal, to help the students be successful. And I hope that they will understand they need to. If they don't want to embrace it, they need to get on board with it and make sure that every child in that classroom is getting the best opportunity that they can from them and from this system, and that is with your help. The information that you all are standing up here talking about, all the data that you all look at on every student, whether it's the highest achieving or the student that's struggling, to make sure that they're getting what they need is just phenomenal. You know, when I first came on this board, this wasn't the conversation, okay? This wasn't what was happening. And, you know, I believe down the road, we are going to see some students who would have been in a very different place when they leave Montgomery County schools because of the work that you all are doing. And I thank you so much.
Any other comments, board members?
Ms. Franklin, you said every student, but what I'm hearing that you're based at all the Title I schools.
Right.
And the contact schools, not every student at those contact schools is having this individual attention, correct?
The contact schools have the resources available. As far as the iStation, they do have that available, so that is an extra layer. We have gone and provided PD as far as iStation goes and how to use it for the teachers at those schools to help in the same way that we have at our home schools. But we're not there on a daily basis to look at their scores. So.
Right. But the
We'd
work that
love
you're
to
doing
have you
does
with us.
impact those schools.
We would love for there to be more of us to go
Yes.
there.
That's what I was saying.
Yes.
All right, I think we're good.
Most powerful intervention with any student is a powerful teacher, one with a great set of instructional strategies. And, you know, I thank you for the many hats that you wear, from cafeteria to greeting kids at the door, to doing some work with individual students when you have an opportunity. But most of all, for trying to help every teacher that you have an opportunity to touch grow in their skill sets, because that is the most important determinant in what happens in a classroom, what
Absolutely.
the teacher does. And, you know, so you're supporting it, and I would like to see us at some point be able to expand the model so that we do have at least some half-time coaches in all of our schools, and with the long-term goal of one for everybody, because you do make a difference.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So our next item this evening is the secondary schedule survey presentation. As you know, over the last 2 years, middle and high school schedules have been reorganized, and delivery models have been changed. Some courses have been reduced in the time that they have in the schedule. Others have increased in the time they have in schedule, as has there been a change in the amount of time that teachers are actually in front of students. And so the survey results that the results from the survey that we did this year were provided to you earlier in the semester. And tonight, Ms. Weaver will share some of the highlights of the survey.
Thank you, Ms. Blackburn.
As requested this evening, I'll share with you results of the scheduling survey. This year, surveys were taken by students, parents, and faculty members at the middle school and the high schools. I'll start with the middle school. As you know, we gave a scheduling survey to middle school parents and middle school teachers last year. This year, we added students to that as well. Last year, we had 370 parent responses, and this year we had 472, so we had even more parents take the survey this year. As you can see in all areas, these represent each of the questions. In each area, parents were more satisfied this year than they were last year. Blue is last year, red is this year. Overall, satisfaction, which is the far right column, increased from 70% last year to 87% this year. One of the areas that had the largest change, other than overall satisfaction, was time in PE. You can see that that went from about 60% up to almost 80%. In talking to students, they mirrored very much what their parents said. Faculty, very similar. They continued to express that they appreciated having an additional instructional time because each of their classes are longer than they were previously, but they miss the reduction that caused in their planning time. A new question that we added this year was a question about their interest in adding, continuing, or adding back in, kind of depended on which school you were at, the idea of an elective wheel. This is an important part of the middle school concept that we feel like maybe some schools had to get away from as dealing with the consequences of budget. So we wanted to know if this was important for people to bring back and for us to consider. What we found is that it was. 82% of parents, 93% of staff, and 73% of students liked the option of having an opportunity to explore, especially in 6th grade. And so this chart shows you the areas that they were most interested in exploring. This wheel represents the students, but art and technology were in the top 3 with students, parents, and faculty. So since this is a fundamental part of the concept and it was received so positively, we're planning this year and we'll plan through next year to incorporate an exploratory wheel for 6th grade in the 2016 and 17 school year. So this year was the first year of implementation at the high school. So this was the first time that we had an opportunity to ask for feedback. You can see that we got lots of responses. Almost 1,300 students responded, about 200 faculty members, and about 500 parents. You can see that all of our strands were represented actually very closely to the percentage of the division that they represent. So we had great response rates in all 4 strands. As you remember, last year we chose to move to a hybrid schedule. The thing that we liked about the hybrid schedule was it allowed each school to make selections based on format. They could have some 45-minute classes, they could have some semester block classes, and they could have some alternating or AB type classes. And schools chose all of those options in different degrees. So we were very interested to get feedback to use in planning. This represents some of the areas that students, parents, and faculty members all agreed on, either things that they liked or did not like as much, but they all agreed for the most part. You can see they're in very close agreement. People felt for the most part, about 85% of people, that we had an opportunity for them to explore lots of electives and had a wide variety of course offerings at the high school level. You can see that for the most part, there was agreement that people preferred a 90-minute block over a 45-minute block. And you can see that most people felt like teachers were very available to meet with them when necessary. And then there were some areas that students, parents, and faculty did not agree. You can see for the most part, our students and parents were about 20 percentage points more satisfied with things than our faculty were. And there were lots of areas that we had different perspectives on. Some people preferred a semester block within that 90-minute period. Some people preferred an AB block within that period. But in general, as I said, you can see that parents and students were more satisfied than faculty members were. So going forward for next year at the high school, we did make some changes. Each principal use the information to tweak some things. As I mentioned, that was sort of the beauty of the hybrid schedule, is that it allowed teachers and principals at the building level to make decisions that best fit their school's needs. So I've shown for you what next year is going to look like at the high schools. Auburn High School is primarily going to offer 45-minute classes, year-long classes, and semester block classes. That's a little bit of a change for them. They offered some AB classes this year, and they felt like the semester block was more successful for them. Blacksburg High School next year will be primarily offering alternating or AB classes. This year they offered some 45 minutes. They felt like those weren't as successful. Christiansburg is staying...
Sorry, say that again about Blacksburg.
Blacksburg currently is offering some 45-minute classes. Next year they're going to be offering mostly AB block classes. They didn't find the 45-minute classes to be as successful.
They didn't?
They didn't.
Okay.
Christiansburg is staying most closely next year with the schedule that they have this year, which is a combination of 45-minute year-long classes and semester block. And Eastern Montgomery next year will be offering primarily semester block classes. They find that to be very successful given the type of students that they have, because often their students need additional time or an opportunity to have another shot at a class, and so semester block works very well for them. They didn't feel that the 45 minutes were successful for them because sort of, as the instructional coaches were mentioning, you didn't really get results until the end of the year, and this way they get results at the semester and can make adjustments in student schedules. So these are the changes that the schools are implementing based on the feedback that they received from their faculty, from their parents, and from their students. So we're excited next year to be able to offer, again, the high school data to compare. It was very interesting with the middle school, like I said, to see that those percentages all increased, that people, as they became more comfortable with the schedule and had an opportunity to make it work better in their buildings, that everybody became more satisfied. So we expect the same thing will happen at the high school, but it'll certainly be nice to have 2 years of data to collect, because it's difficult the first year you do anything to really get a good sense of how things went, because as we know, change is difficult, and sometimes it doesn't matter what the change is, it's just hard for people to come to terms with it. So we're excited to have a second year to really implement and make it work in each individual school. So those are the results and the lessons that we learned from the survey.
Any comments or questions, board members?
With the different high schools having slightly different schedules, how will that work for like the STEM Academy, where you're sharing classes and students are going to different places?
We still plan very carefully for students that are changing from school to school. One thing that's been a real benefit to us is our increase in virtual classes that are available. That's worked really well for some students. Next year, we're going to expand due to the tablets. We've got the opportunity to offer economics and personal finance in a completely virtual setting for students that works for, so that gives us some flexibility. And we're also piloting this summer a health component to PE9 and an online version that we think the kids are going to be very excited about. So that gives us a little bit more flexibility as well. But the principals all work very closely together to plan to make sure that students don't lose instructional time when they're going from building to building.
And we expanded this year where students are going for next year.
We have.
That should be a plus also.
We have. That allowed us to open up more spots for all students to explore programs, because we have some programs that are very popular that especially students from Eastern Montgomery or Auburn didn't necessarily have an opportunity to be a part of. So that is expanded opportunity for next year.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
While you're setting it up, I'd like to just say that these ladies in the first row are dressed for summer and it's cold in here. and you can stay for the rest of the meeting if you want, but it's really not necessary. I just want to say that.
And again, we do thank you for being here. We're happy to have you, but you may go if you would like.
Exactly.
You know, I would like to just follow up with Jennifer and say, you know, we are trying to listen to what the employees say, the students and the parents say with the scheduling model. You'll recall that last year we added some additional early release days for secondary schools because of the fact that really one of the bigger issues is that, teachers have seen a reduction in the actual minutes of planning time. They're doing more in front of students, so they've increased in actual direct student contact and decreased some in planning. So that was one of the things that we did. And one of the things when I was doing the listening tours at the high schools, they asked for continuing to provide support for planning for 90-minute teaching periods. And that's something that, our supervisors and everybody else who does professional development, we're asking that they try to incorporate something about, using extended blocks of time productively for student with instruction. And so those are ways that we're trying to address areas in which particularly our staff, have expressed some need for additional assistance, because happy teachers are the best teachers also. We want them to be, fully based in solid instructional strategies, but we also know that how they feel about coming to work is very important, and we want to continue to work on that. So the next item for tonight is exemption of new employees from part-time incentive eligibility. And I'm just going to make a very brief comment, and then Joe is going to come up and just show you some slides. And I'm bringing this back because we had several discussions about it during the budget cycle. And I think there's a need to revisit our part-time employee salary schedule in the light of the addition of a full health benefits package and the continuation of the part-time incentive. So tonight, I'm presenting information to you to set a course of action to provide time to review and possibly modify the salary schedule for part-time employees, so that instead of having this incentive thing, that you actually have time to study and build in that amount of money or whatever you determine is the right amount based on some consultant input, and create it in a salary schedule rather than a bonus plan. So the first step in the process is to exempt new hires. That means anybody that we hire July 1 for 2015 forward from eligibility for the part-time incentive in its current form. It just kind of freezes everybody at a point in time and buys some time to really study what the salary schedule should look like. This recommendation has no impact on any current employee who is receiving the incentive bonus, and it has no impact on anyone who is in the pipeline to receive the bonus. It's only for new hires. Ultimately, the school board will have the opportunity to revisit the salary schedule and/or replace the incentive with an adjusted salary schedule, or you might decide that you need to keep the incentive bonus. But we need to create a point in time where we could start fresh with a group of employees. And so somewhere you have to draw the line in the sand and say, okay, this is the spot where we're going to start. Joe?
Thank you, Ms. Blackburn. Again, as Ms. Blackburn stated, that we're looking at the new employees for this plan. But as you recall, October of this year, October of 15, the part-time employees will receive health insurance. And if you remember, the annual cost of that is approximately $2.1 million. Now that 2.1 is annual based on this year's budget premium amounts. Though our budget this year is only for 10 months, which comes out to about $1.4 million, if you recall. We have 302 employees that currently receive the PTI, their part-time incentive, and that cost is approximately $1.4 million. What we're proposing is that, as Ms. Blackburn stated, is to grandfather those employees that are currently in our system. In other words, they're in the pipeline to receive the PTI. If they started this year, completed this year, they would continue on and receive the PTI, the part-time incentive, just like any other employee. But as of July of this year, any new employee hired into Montgomery County would not be eligible for the PTI. Now that gives us approximately 3 years to make a decision about what to do with this. Do we reinstate it as it is, or do we do a comprehensive salary study place the monies that would have been placed in the part-time incentive into the salary schedule. Because as we were going through the process, we learned that this part-time incentive, although it was initiated to be a part of their health insurance plan or their retirement plan, morphed into their salary and became a part of their salary. So what we're suggesting is then let's make it a part of their salary. And that comprehensive salary study would help us do that. It would give us a plan in order to gradually allow these people into the plan. So essentially we would end up with 2 salary schedules for these folks. Those that are on the PTI and those that are not. Okay? So
And eventually, as time passes, you would have one group of employees all on the same plan.
Exactly.
But it'll take a while.
It will take a while. It's almost similar to the hybrid program that we currently have. Eventually, all of our employees will be the VRS, the hybrid employees, because Plan 1 and Plan 2 will start retiring off as the years go on, and then we'll just have the hybrid until the VRS decides to make something else. So that's what we'll do with it's similar to the part-time incentive, what we're suggesting to do. So we would continue or the board could decide to keep it intact, but it gives us that a 3-year span, because anybody that we hire this year would have a minimum of 3 years before they're even eligible for the part-time incentive. All right. So that, as Ms. Blackburn stated, it would give us that time to do a comprehensive study to look at how we can implement this into the salary schedule. So that's what we're proposing.
We would also still have those people's start of service date. So any new hire, we'd have a start of service date. And if you ended up going back to part-time incentive, we can track that too, because they'll have a start of service date.
Yes, ma'am. So that's our proposal. If there's any questions.
Well, comment.
Yes, ma'am.
The part-time incentive was started years and years ago because part-time employees didn't have health insurance.
Correct.
So now they have health insurance.
Yes, sir.
Correct. So I think that what you've planned is fine, but I'm thinking, well, why would we go back to the part-time incentive when they've already are receiving it in the line of insurance? Because the part-time incentive is what has gotten us into trouble right now. Those are just comments.
Yes,
We're going to do, what we hope to do is a market analysis of these jobs, which means that if you do that, they would benchmark what our salary is against the market value, and they would tell us if we need to raise the salary or not, as opposed to doing a bonus incentive. Because the odds are good that there are going to be at least some places along the part-time salary schedules where we are off market value. But that's also true of other positions. And so our hope is that from the carryover money this year, that perhaps we're able to begin that process of doing some market analysis for how we pay people, and over time begin to make some adjustments.
I think that's a great program.
The problem with, now that we have to provide insurance is that not all of those people need it. So it starts to become unfair, because some of those people rely on that salary. They already have insurance covered by their spouse.
Yeah, but that happens everywhere. I mean, I understand, and I think you're absolutely correct.
We just need to be respectful of that.
Yeah. But what that does is it gives the family an option of picking the best insurance available at the best price. Because if each spouse is in a different situation, that's probably the only benefit it has, but it's fair.
Well, the other need to do the market analysis and look at the salary schedule is that you are now, and depending on how you look at it, you may be paying some of your full-time employees less than you're paying your part-time employees, because of the fact that you've now added an $8,000 benefit package to that salary schedule. So you really need to look at it from a comprehensive perspective.
Good point.
Yes, ma'am. I only add to that is that I would say instead of paid, because they don't receive that in pay, I would say they're compensated. It's an $8,000 compensation for insurance. they don't necessarily see that in pocket.
Any other questions, board members?
I'd just like to mention, I think at least 2 of us aren't going to be at the next board meeting where this is going to be an action item. So I don't know if we can move this to an action item today, or would like to propose waiting another. I hate to have to wait to make an action. Is that possible?
I kind of would err on the side of just making sure that we have, if there is any feedback that anyone wants to give, that we do give it chance to do that. Not that I anticipate there would be a whole lot, but my feeling would be we always want to give people an opportunity to speak if they want to.
Right, and I believe, just as folks came and spoke to us very passionately during the budget process, that there'll be folks who have an opinion they want us to hear, about this before we make a decision. Now, I want to be clear here, because I was here before this went into place, and part of the issue also is the salary scales were so low that we couldn't get people to fill positions, and it was a revolving door to try to get people to stay in the district. So we need to, look at making sure that we're paying our employees, what they're due. So if we freeze the incentive program or grandfather folks in, anyone hired new wouldn't be eligible for 3 years anyway. So you're saying within those 3 years, and maybe before the 3-year period, we come up with a plan that salary would be, the incentive would be rolled into the salary, right? Which I think is long past due.
Yeah.
I think the 3-year period would be an awesome time for us to assess it. Question, Joe, does this affect, if we were to change what we call the part-time incentive, and right now it's looked at as a bonus, but if we were to change it to actual salary and make it part of the salary schedule, is that in any way, shape, or form going to affect payroll, taxes, any of that stuff on the other side of that?
It currently does. It's currently put into their monthly for 10 months is what it's paid over. So all taxes are taken out of that as well. So yes, it wouldn't have no additional effect on a person's pay as far as any withdrawals from FICA or anything of that nature.
Okay.
Okay. So how long would it take to do the study? Because I don't see us dragging our feet for 3 years to make a decision.
If we get it funded out of this year's carryover plan, you could very well address the issue depending on what the dollar value is of the issue against your market analysis. You could possibly address it for 16, 17.
Yes, ma'am.
So how long would it take to do the analysis?
It's somewhere between 3 to 6 months is usually what it takes, because there's a lot of information that needs to be gathered. Job descriptions, current salary, surrounding market, those types of things. So it takes some time to gather that data. So if we started it, say, this summer, late this summer, July, August timeframe, if that's the pleasure of the board, then we could have something ready before December to present to the board. And I would also suggest that when we do a market analysis, that we do that similar to the Evergreen study that we did this year, I would suggest that we have some kind of rollout as well. What is the impact of this will be for year 1, year 2, year 3? And so they could give us that information using the data that they gather from us, so that we know what to expect in the next several years if we roll this in, because that's, again, it will have a budgetary impact.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just want to be clear that if we go with this, employees who are in year 1 at this point will continue until they hit year 3. If we don't come up, if we end up sticking with the same plan, we'll be eligible, right?
That's my recommendation.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And that's automatic. We have that in our software package now. That's automatic, that we allow that.
Do we have any kind of an estimate on how many part-time employees we're going to need to hire after July 1st at this point?
No, sir.
Okay.
That figure changes, but typically we have about a 10% changeover
Okay.
of staff. So, with 2,000 employees, full and part-time, you're looking at about 200 employees total.
Okay.
Professional, we usually have, or certified people, we usually have somewhere between 75 and 100. So those others are certified. I
Okay.
mean, non-certified folks.
Okay. Sorry.
Quite all right.
Thanks, Joe.
Yes, ma'am.
Final agenda item tonight is our facilities update, and Mr. Baronato will provide a brief update on facilities work that's either in the planning stage or already in process. Dan?
Good evening. Some projects you'll see going this summer. The roof projects are all ready to go starting in June, just a couple weeks from now, at Shawsville Middle, Gilbert Linkus, the gym at Falling Branch, and the concession stand building at the stadium at CHS. We're working in-house with our maintenance personnel and in coordination with Rick Weaver on the culinary arts class kitchen at Christiansburg High School to renovate that and bring it up to our modern standard. We're doing a number of pavement improvement projects as well as sidewalks, parking areas, paved play areas, tennis courts, and running tracks. Those will hopefully all be in place, contracts for those by the end of next week. We're going to refinish the main gym floors, which we haven't done it yet since they've been built in 2002 and 3 at CMS and BMS. At Shawsville Middle School, if Joe left, but the water line that froze and burst this winter, this summer of 2015, we'll be taking that out. That's an original water line, and it's quite deteriorated, and we'll put that back together with new materials. And at KIPS, we have an emergency power supply system, 1992 vintage, which is much different than what we have today. Basically, it's a closet filled with 12-volt car batteries, and and it gives about 60 to 90 minutes of emergency power, and parts of that are failing. There are no replacement parts, and so we have to get that fixed and replaced with an emergency generator and an uninterrupted power supply system. Some status of some of the PTA and booster projects. And the first one there is the Safe Routes to School projects. The Harding Avenue one will finish the fencing and the pathway this summer. And wanted to let you know that the ones at Bellevue and Auburn are now under the design, and the county is working on those projects, primarily off-site of our schools, but in support of our schools. We're working with AES. The PTA bought some playground equipment we're going to get installed this summer. And CPS recently put in for, and we approved a small project for raised garden beds. Finally, the former school properties. The news update for this month has to do with the former Shawsville Elementary School. In April, the supervisors transferred some funds to the school capital projects account that they have, basically for the supervisors buying that site. As you know, it's a Parks and Rec site, has always been. They're going to continue using that. And they've also, through the Industrial Development Authority, have authorized an asbestos survey of the site that's needed for them to formally purchase and transfer the site to the county. And the former school board office on Junkin Street was sold at auction on April 8th. So that is the two areas that have shown some movement this month.
When do we close on that?
I don't know exactly when they close. I'm probably under due diligence right now.
Okay. Any other questions? I just have one question. How has all the grass been planted on the former Auburn Middle School / Reiner Elementary School?
Yes, as far as I know, there may be some spots that they have to come back and fix, but.
All right. Thanks. Thanks. Jason did a great thing. He gave me a brick, so I'm very happy. I have it at home. I'm going to get it mounted somehow.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
All right. Moving on to unfinished business. Board members, do any of you have any unfinished business that you would like to address at this point?
Yeah, I do. It's unfinished as far as I'm concerned. On April 21st, the board passed the change of time for elementary school and secondary school students. And after that, the next meeting or so, Mr. Lyons, you made a comment that this issue is not over. And Ms. Bonds, you said twice in the last meeting, I've said, please come out, please come out. You want people to speak before the board. And I think it's really sad that you've encouraged people to come out and speak when this issue is over. There's nothing more that can be done about this. On the first meeting in January, we voted for a new chair, and this was a contentious issue. The effects of the board was a vote that was 4-3. The people who voted against this have supported the board's decision. And I don't understand why, with this issue, the 3 people can't support the board issue. There's a 10th commandment of school boards, and the 8th commandment reads this, and I quote, "Be prepared to support board decisions. You don't have to be a cheerleader for votes you have lost, but don't undermine the board and the superintendent's efforts to implement the direction of the board." And I feel personally that there's been nothing but undermining of this issue. And as I say again, unfortunately, it's sad that we have people who spoke again tonight about an issue that is dead in the water. There's no change.
Well, I absolutely disagree with what you just stated. I encourage folks, and always have and always will, as long as I'm on this board, to come and address the board about issues related to the school system. And that's what folks are doing. We may not agree with what they say, and I've been on that side of it too, and have taken my hits from folks who don't agree with decisions that I've made since I've been on this board, and everybody else will have to do the same thing. This issue is not dead. It can be changed. You know, it might not happen while you're on this board, but it still can be changed. I think it is every board member's right to talk to constituents and citizens in this county and help them understand how they impact the board. That's why we have 30 minutes public address for folks to come and tell us what they think and what they feel and what they want and what they don't want. So one of the things that I'm going to be asking is that the board attorney come and clarify exactly where we're at in this process so that there's no misunderstanding, there's no emails going back and forth as far as what can and cannot happen with this decision.
Yeah, I'd actually already asked Mr. King to come and express to us exactly where that is. Before he speaks, he's actually going to read some information that is in Robert's rules. But I will say this. We cannot make any changes to a decision that has been made on this board until the next session. Mr. King is in just a few minutes is going to share exactly why that is and how that works. But I will again echo Ms. Franklin's comments. We do encourage our community to come and speak to us about matters that are concerning to them. And I will always encourage them to do so. That issue or any other issue that they want to come and speak to us about. That said, I want them to understand that at this point, we cannot do anything about it until January at the very earliest. And I'm going to ask Mr. King to share with us exactly why that is and make the public known to what our rules, what Robert's rules actually say about this issue.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, may I?
Well, I was just going to say, before you
Yeah,
start,
sorry.
since I kind of was called out on it, yes, I tell people to come, but I always have. And sad to say, I think people are just busy in their lives and don't always get here before we take a vote. And I think sometimes we get quickly into taking a vote. That's why we've changed some of the ways we do that. And I also don't get on email and fire back emails. That's one of the things I just try to say, thank you. Please come out and be heard, because it's a respectful email instead of somebody firing one back, well, that was rude, or this and this and this and that. Sometimes people can get on email and just type away, and texting's the same way. It's easy to text and email things that you're thinking and you put your emotions into. So I do encourage people to come out. I always have. The same with, I hope all the board does, because that's the one thing you can ask anybody I talk to. I'm like, come to the board, say it, say it, say it, say it. So what I say is no different now than what I've always said for 10 years. And I like the fact that people are finally coming out. We need to take a stand on more things that is going on in our county. I wished myself I would have gone to the Board of Supervisors and spoke out on a $4.8 million animal shelter, but I didn't, and I wished I would have, so I always encourage that. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. King.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Superintendent. First, I want to say out of the gate that the clerk and I both have been asked questions about this, and neither one of us is trained as a parliamentarian. And Robert's rules are what you all have adopted in your bylaws, which are to govern how you conduct your meetings. My best reading of Robert's rules is that what was contemplated at the last meeting was what's called a motion to reconsider. And I believe I understand that a motion to reconsider within a session of this board is a predicate to a vote to rescind, which would be the substantive motion that would require a reversal of the vote that was taken before. Everybody with me so far? Mm-hmm. What constitutes a session of this board is not defined anywhere. And my best guess at what a session of this board is from your organizational meeting in January until that calendar year, and you begin a new organization of this board. Another argument might be made that it's an election cycle, but I frankly think that's too long. I think the conduct of this board is what happens, transpires, the votes you take within one session. But I'm glad to be educated otherwise if I'm wrong about that. If I'm right about that, then a motion to reconsider is, and I'm reading right from the rule book now, so you don't think I'm making any of this up. A motion, it enables a majority in an assembly within a limited time and without notice to bring back for further consideration a motion which has already been voted on, which I think is what happened here. The purpose of reconsidering a vote is to permit correction of hasty, ill-advised, or erroneous action, which I hear are some of the challenges that are being made, or to take into account added information or a changed situation that has developed since the taking of the vote, which is also what I think I've heard from, at least from public comment. And then it says to provide both usefulness and protection against abuse. The motion to reconsider has the following unique characteristics. A, it can be made only by a member who voted with the prevailing side. And that's not what transpired at the last meeting, as I understand it. A member of the minority vote, not the prevailing side, attempted to put it on the agenda, which arguably was a vote to reconsider, but may not have even been that. It might have just been a vote to put it on an agenda where it would be reconsidered.
Right.
So you follow the layers that I'm saying? But at minimum, a motion to reconsider requires that it be made by someone on the prevailing side, and I'm going to skip some description about that. B says the making of the motion is subject to time limits as follows. In a session of one day, such as an ordinary meeting of a club or a one-day convention, the motion to reconsider can be made only on the same day the vote to be considered was taken. So that would have, if a session of this body is only one day, it would have had to have been taken on that very day when the vote was cast. in a convention or session of more than one day, and I'm making the argument that I think you all are a session of more than one day, a reconsideration can be moved only on the same day the original vote was taken or on the next succeeding day within the session on which a business meeting is held. And so I think that probably would have had to have been the last meeting when someone on the non-prevailing side made the motion rather than someone on the prevailing side. Again, I'm glad to be educated otherwise, but that's the logic that I followed to deduce. I remembered, frankly, prior to law school when I was a lobbyist for the Virginia School Boards Association, that you can't make a motion to reconsider unless you're on the prevailing side. And I mentioned that both to Ms. Bond, who made the motion, Ms. Franklin, and the chair following the last meeting. And that's why I think some information or maybe some misinformation has been circulating. But that's the logic that I use to get where we are. If it's the direction of the board, I'm glad to consult with someone who is trained as a parliamentarian.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any other comments, board members?
Yes, I have a couple. First, I'd like was wondering if Ms. Blackburn would mind to share what has been planned so far for implementing this change and the future.
Be glad to. Let me get to my notes, though.
While you're getting to your notes, I can say my other things that I've prepared. Mr. Smith asked that he had not heard the reason that I voted the way that I did, and sorry that you haven't, but we've been discussing this at least since October, and I definitely have made some statements, but I'd be glad to do that again today. It was definitely not a quick answer to this. And one of the things I've learned after serving on the school board is that it's extremely difficult to make any sort of change, regardless of the prevailing opinion within a community. There will rarely be vocal support, but it seems unnecessary. And there will always be vocal opposition because someone is always going to feel antagonized. I think it's hard for some of my colleagues to sit up here and listen to all the emotional pleas and not be swayed. For my part, if there's an objective, analytical case that a given change will improve learning outcomes for our students without compromising the school system's other objectives, then it is the right decision, and I'm secure enough to stick with my decision. That later start times will improve the academic performance of adolescent students is not in doubt. This has been confirmed in study after study by experts in pediatrics and childhood education. Whether earlier start times for elementary students will have a positive or negative effect on their learning is less clear. Certainly, the natural sleep patterns of elementary children are more consistent with earlier start times. And I've spoken with a number of elementary students who are convinced that earlier start times will improve their learning outcomes as well. Given the overwhelmingly positive evidence for adolescent students and the lack of negative evidence concerning elementary students, the decision seems pretty obvious to anyone willing to ignore their own self-interest. My decision on this issue is based on an established research and rational thought. The vocal minority is certainly welcome, as other board members have said, to continue to come out and express their displeasure. But as our school board lawyer has explained, this issue has been resolved until January.
Okay, I do have my notes now, and there are a number of tasks that are going to be involved in implementation of the board's decision. And that's unusual. I'm usually loud, okay? There are a number of tasks that need to be accomplished as we move forward with implementation of the decision of the current sitting board. And right this minute, our number one focus is closing out school year 2015. And so we have been designing the task, but we have not yet actually started the work of the task. But these are some of the implementation team issues that we will be addressing beginning in June. Athletics, the calendar, childcare, communication plan to keep everyone fully aware of what we're doing and what steps we're taking, safety, school nutrition, and student achievement. And these are major facets of implementation, a change in schedule. And effective as soon as we dismiss for school year 2015 or 14-15. We will begin putting teams around each of these issues to ferret out the facts and provide guidance and information not only to the board, but for the general public as well.
Okay.
I think I
Anything?
probably should also speak since I was not giving my opinion as well. I do want to say that I was aware of this long before I was appointed to the school board, that this discussion was happening. So I was up on the research that the school board had already been given and that the Start Times Committee spent a lot of time gathering. I also, in my research, talked to teachers in the local elementary schools as well as the secondary schools, both in our county and in other counties, who had already put this in place or had never changed it in the first place. And so my decision was based on, as a county whole, what would be best for the students and their academic progress.
I'm going to make some statements too, since I think I explained where I'm coming from when I vote. But again, receiving emails that, saying that I wasn't outspoken or did not say anything about it. And I have to clarify a couple emails. And I know I try to respond as much as I can, but I didn't run for the seat because of my political ambitions or my agenda, which some of the emails suggested. I only ran because actually I've been asked by many people. And the suggestion to study school start time came under new business on August 5th, 2014. That is 10 months ago. It was on agenda for information on September 16, and then resolution passed on October 7. And school board asked the topic to be studied. So it's not something pushed by Ms. Blackburn as her last-minute agenda item as suggested by some. For this past 7 months, school start time has been studied by many, including 30-member committee, 3 committee advisors, superintendent, and 7 board members. Committee met many times, made presentation on at least 3 different occasions, November 6, December 16, January 20, and all open to public till superintendent made her recommendation on April 7, 2015. We had heard only from handful of citizens, even though it has been 7 months since resolution had passed, till the day it is approved by the board on April 21st. We can only know what our constituents think if they can call us, email us, or show up to share their opinions at the public address. Even though we all have right to have our opinions, making an assumption that board members do not care, do not study, or its constituents' right to demand, threaten, and be rude is totally wrong. When I voted, I explained my thoughts and share my reasoning. I have 2 important research-based facts, and I still do stand by to this day. If the opportunity of change is given, it will be good for all students. Number 1, elementary students learn best at earlier times of the day, can go bed earlier than the middle and high school counterparts, and can fall asleep easier. The second, middle and high school students learn best at later parts of the day and cannot go to bed as early as elementary school counterparts and cannot fall asleep early as easily. If we all agree that number of hours of sleep of elementary students range 9 to 12 hours. And if you get minimum, you can sleep from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. for 7 a.m. bus pickup. And if you go with the maximum, 12 hours, then you can go to bed 6 p.m. and get up at 6 a.m. for 7 a.m. bus pickup. So bedtime around 8 p.m. is doable, for appropriate sleep time for elementary students. But on the other hand, if you look at the middle and high school age students now, and do the same calculation. They've been picking up at 6:30 a.m., so they have to get up at 5:30. And you will say that they've been getting on average 6.5 hours of sleep, even if they claim they can go to bed and fall asleep at 11 p.m., which is scientifically debatable. An amount of sleep they get plainly inadequate, because 6.5 hours sleep is no good, and there is no way they can be sleeping more than that. And we are the only locality within 17 other localities that 9 a.m. elementary school start time we have. 7 of these localities start their elementary students either at 7:50 or 8. And their pickup time changes from 6:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. So must have been working in terms of safety of children. 16 of these localities let their high schools out between 3:15 and 3:30. We do play sports with most of those schools. Obviously, athletics have been working too. Some of the localities, like Barata County, is even bigger in size than Montgomery County. I agree that sleep is important for all the ages, but there's a proven difference between pre-adolescents and the adolescents in their circadian rhythm and time of day instructions. And it is proven that if we synchronize these, for both group of students, performance and student health improves. So that's all.
Any other comments on this issue or any other old business? Board members? Hearing none, we will move on to new business. Any board members have any new business that they would like to bring to the table? Hearing none, announcements and information.
I do have a couple of announcements. For one, I understand that this is the first year that we're going to have the STEM Academy certificates on our diplomas. If I said that correctly. So that's very exciting. I think there were 5 students. And I'd also like to send out a big congratulations to 3 young Christiansburg elementary students who won the stock market game program. I think you heard them mention that earlier. They got first place in the state for the Virginia Tech region, and then one of the young ladies actually placed 7th in the nation.
Awesome. Excellent. Any other announcements or informations, board members?
Anybody had a chance to see the Susical?
I did. That's what I was
Good,
getting ready to
because
say. I went to
couldn't make
Susical
it.
Sunday, and it was
So
fabulous. I mean, it was
I
it
was
was
so
a packed
wanted to
house
go.
the whole time, and it was so good. They did a phenomenal job. So anybody who goes back and knows any of the students that were involved in Susical, please say that we did recognize what a fabulous job that they've done.
I look forward to seeing you all at the graduations. A lot of excitement in our high schools right now, and we have 3 on Friday night and 1 on Saturday evening.
Anything else? You see our upcoming school board meetings. Our next meeting will be on June 2nd. You know what? I remember my question now that I had about the exemption. If we hear it again on the 2nd and then we actually vote on it at our next meeting, which will be the 16th, will that be enough time to implement what we need to do by July 1st? You're okay with that? Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were good with that. Okay. The rest of the board meetings you see there, we have our professional development session on June 9th, and everything else that is on there. With that said, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned.
Nah, I don't want to go